apologize. We'll hopefully be able to get him for our next session so we can dig into that. So I do really apologize for that. For whatever reason, hopefully everything's okay on his end. Okay, so today we'll talk about configuring pages in DPM. So one of the pieces of feedback that we got for context is that UI Builder is great for being very, very specific about updates and edits that you want to make to your pages. So there really is kind of the sky's the limit. The challenge with that is it's a learning curve. And once you duplicate the pages that we ship and make changes, you then need to maintain and update those pages as we ship new features. And so what we wanted to do was we wanted to provide a way for you to much more easily configure your pages using system properties instead of having to make very common updates that we were hearing all the time in UIB. So reducing the number of changes or hopefully allowing you to stay kind of more out of the box or as close to out of the box as possible. So I'm looking at one of our demo instances, and right now I'm the system admin, but this can also be done as the DPM admin role. When you go to the digital portfolio management module, you'll see all these different kind of sections, if you will, and then we come down to this admin section. And here you'll see we have a series of pages. The first 3 pages that we shipped are specific to the solution types that we show in DPM. So we have specific properties per page type, services and offerings, business applications, and application services. So if we look at business applications, for example, all the pages are very similar, and you'll have to pardon the design of the page. We don't have control over this. But basically and you can find these also just in the system properties list, but we wanted to bring them more to your attention and make it kind of easier to interact with. So by default, we're showing everything on the pages. The idea is to give you the art of the possible. What kind of data can you show and how can you show it? What's a good starting point, again, based on our research. And then by checking any of these boxes, you would be hiding certain aspects of that page for all of the business applications. So here we have a series of lifecycle configurations, meaning you can hide the plan tab, the code tab, the run tab, or the risk tab. Again, this will hide for all of the business app pages. And then in the content configurations, this is getting more specific into the page makeup. So you can hide the summary section on the plan tab. You can hide the demands on the plan tab. We try to tell you exactly where they are by, again, checking any of these boxes. The nice thing too is you can uncheck them and show them again. And so the idea is if you have like a very, very common use case is you have your run data, you have your incidents, your problems, your changes, requests, outages, things like that in ServiceNow already. And ideally you're already them to your service offerings. And so the run tab is kind of a safe place to start with DPM. And then what you can do is you can hide, your plan and your build tabs, focusing on the run tab. And then as you build out the data in the plan tab or in the build tab, you can start to show those pages and then be very specific about your content. Another particular example is some customers use our Agile product, while others are maybe more project oriented. So you can hide projects, but you can, show your epic stories, releases, and sprints. So again, you can kind of tailor and configure your pages based on the types of data that you're using and how you're working. And then we've also introduced DevOps specific configurations, and it starts here on this DevOps properties page. And so these are automatically hidden until you enable DevOps in your workspace, which means you have your DevOps plugin enabled, and then you can start to show that data by simply turning these on and viewing them on the different pages. So let's take an example. I'm going to go first into the workspace just to, again, show you what everything looks like when it's fully built out. And then I'll show you what very quickly it's just hidden, and you can make that update. And then we'll go into one other new configuration that we added in our most recent release around the personal portfolio pages. So one second. We'll go to our trusty business app example. Maybe. I do apologize. I've been having internet issues. I've been hotspotting my phone, so hopefully this will be a little speedier. But here we can just at a glance here, of course, we can see all of our lifecycle tabs. I will note we don't hide the info tab, or we don't give that as a configuration, and the reason being then we show nothing on the page. And so we do always show this, and this data is coming from the record and relationship. So it's kind of like pretty standard. Okay, so here you can see we have our plan tab, build tab, run, plan. What we'll do is I'm going to hide this tab. So we'll hide everything on here. And then on the build tab, I will hide some of the release information. So we can just take a quick peek about what it looks like. We have our projects, epics, stories, sprints, releases, and our changes. So I'm going to hide the agile data. And so we'll see then how this will update pretty quickly for you. So we'll hide the plan tab. And then we'll also go ahead and hide our epics, stories, releases, and sprints. And then all you have to do is save the page. We'll go back to the workspace and we'll just refresh the business app page. And I will just another quick note, if you have duplicated these pages in UIB already and started to make changes, this doesn't work. This only works on the pages that we ship. That might be an obvious statement, but I just wanted to call that out. So you can see now we have projects and changes. So the idea is it's really, really quick and simple. Hopefully it can kind of get you up and running more quickly when it comes to configuring those pages and the kind of content that you're using. And then if we, again, go back to this, we also have some KPI groups properties, but if I show the DevOps, for example, if you're using DevOps, we explain more about what happens when you enable DevOps. So we partnered very closely with that team, and we focused on some of their key metrics around the flow metrics and their accelerate metrics. And because DevOps basically integrates from multiple different sources, including Agile 2.0, when you enable DevOps metrics in your DPM experience, we hide all of the Agile 2.0 data, and then we will show the flow metrics and the accelerate metrics. You can further hide and show those metrics if you, for example, you don't really care, you're not tracking flow, but you are looking at the accelerate. Then you can maintain those and again, kind of tweak that. And then we have a link directly into DevOps. So I can show you what that looks like on the business application page. And we kind of remind you of what happened. We'll go back to our business app, we'll refresh. And then you'll see some of these updates here. Okay, so on our build tab now, we can see the flow metrics. So we ship multiple metrics that, again, are based on what this kind of a persona would want to see at this level. And then if they want to get into more information, this opens in the DevOps workspace in a new tab. And this will automatically filter the data to this particular business application. So that the owner can come in here and they can actually get down to the specific metrics the specific records that make up these metrics. So it's a nice integration there, working with that team. So if that's, if you're using Jira, if you're using another tool to track this data, you can integrate using DevOps and actually see a lot of that good information here in the DPM workspace. And then here are accelerate metrics. And then we also do show accelerate metrics on our run tab. Sorry, everything's going so much. Okay, so those are some of the very quick, easy configurations that you can do. The other one I wanted to show is around our personal portfolio flow. So one other use case that I heard is if you are focused on a particular type of solution, either right now or kind of indefinitely, maybe you're service oriented and you're not focused on business applications. And so what you want to do is you want to just show services. And in our personal portfolio flow, we give you everything. We services and offerings, business apps, and app services. And so in working with a customer, what they actually did was they had to go in and update those pages in UIB because they didn't want to see business apps shown up or referenced for their users. They didn't want to, create any confusion, so to speak. So what we wanted to do is, and what we're always trying to do, so if you have any ideas or feedback that you can share with us about how we can make the product a little bit more flexible or dynamic, so to speak, without having to make these specific configurations, that would be awesome. But that's kind of what we've been focused on, how we can start to layer that in more so. So what you would do is you would type in available item. Let's see, sorry, wrong thing. Type and then .list. Nope, sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed DPM. Okay. So you type in DPM underscore available underscore item underscore type dot list. And what this will do is this will take you to this table, which is how we are kind of configuring what shows up in the personal portfolio flow and where it's coming from. So what you can do is, let's say you want to remove the business application reference from the personal portfolio flow. Actually, I'll click on the record. We'll go into the record itself. But this available in, what we can do is change that from true to false. We will update the record. And then if we go back into the DPM workspace, we'll notice that that reference is removed from the flow and from the cards themselves too. So if I go in and I create a personal portfolio, we'll just do a test really quick so we can get to the next step. You'll notice the business application tab is gone. So that used to be the first tab. Now you'll see services and offerings and application services. And then if we go to the review portfolio, that the tab there will also be removed. So it'll just be, oh, I guess I didn't pick anything, but that tab is also removed. And then when you create the portfolio, another thing we did was the filter for the personal portfolio. So you can choose or kind of filter what's being shown and what you can search. That is now more dynamic based on the items that are in portfolio. So instead of showing you all options in here, we'll only show you options of what is already in the portfolio. So again, trying to make it more flexible, a little bit more dynamic, and easier for you to get up to speed and up and running with the product without having to make significant updates in UIB. So that is kind kind of an overview step-by-step how you can make those configurations. Are there any questions about that or another topic?
Any questions? There are no questions are too dumb or too mean. We are happy to receive any feedback you have.
Okay, I do see a question in here about the business applications tied to incidents and problems. It's via the application service. So you're correct that the business application is meant to be more of the like ideation and design entity or representation. It's not intended to be that operational representation. It's based on its application services, which are like the instantiations of that business app. So what we do is we look at the related application services for the business application, and we roll up that data to the business application level from a needs attention point of view and for those key metrics, incidents, problems, changes. Any other questions or anything that I can run through? Happy to demo something if anybody's interested, or if there are CSDM related questions, I am happy to take a stab at an answer, or we can collect some of the questions that we can't answer for Mark when we reschedule his session. I really do.
Caitlin, what were the properties for the KPI groups?
Yes, so the main property, oops. We have two. So one, you could like set a default, you could set a default start and end date. The other one, this is related to work that we're doing for latest score. So what we're working on implementing for KPI groups is being able to display the latest score instead of the aggregated average or sum on the particular KPIs in the group based on a start and end date. So what we had intended to release this in a previous release, but we ran into some technical challenges. And so what we'll be doing is looking at a future release for this, but it is coming. And what would happen is you would have to enable the property that would apply for all of your DPM solutions. And then all of the KPIs and all the KPI groups would reflect the latest score. Instead of that aggregated score. Is that something that you guys would use, or are you finding that the aggregated scores are working well for you and your users?
Was that directed at me or is the group as a whole?
Yeah, you, and then we can open it up to the group, of course.
We haven't implemented yet. We're kind of in process, and I'm still trying to understand KPI groups. I can't say that I have that figured out, but I was just curious what this was. I don't really understand the difference, to be honest. So we're still trying to figure that out. So I don't have any answers for you. Others might be able to give their opinions.
Argonne's interested.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think it actually is really confusing because I think the expectation is that you're looking at the latest score when you're seeing those metrics. KPI groups, it's a shared feature. And so it was originally implemented for another one of our products. And it basically met so many of our requirements and needs, and it made sense to share it. So we've incorporated that into the digital portfolio management approach to being able to easily configure and map groups of KPIs. One of the things that we're hearing from our users is there's confusion around that aggregated score of either being an average or a sum. And the reason is related to like missed expectations, either in how a KPI is labeled or what the data that they're looking at, or the result not matching a record count because it's looking at an average or a sum over a period of time. Versus here's your kind of trend over a period of time, and then the score reflects the last score that was collected. So what we've been working with that team is to to provide that option so that customers can use, either approach based on what makes the most sense for your end users and how you're kind of reporting on your services and your apps. Quiet group today.
I was trying to type this out, but it was taking too long. I just wanted to know, I discovered in our instance, we are still using the legacy portfolio tree.
Mm-hmm.
And I discovered that we have a ticket open because we can't migrate to the newer one. The newer, I guess it's flat now.
Oh, for service portfolio management.
Yes. So this has an implication, I understand, on the KPI metrics, like taking advantage of the MTTR or some of the other standard KPI mappings that you showed previously.
So I could talk a little bit about that update that we made. So we're not making it flat. What we're doing is we're removing the requirement of setting a dedicated number of layers or like a dedicated depth that would apply throughout the portfolio. And so we're leveraging the same tables. So your portfolios will still work if you move to the new structure. What we do is, though, we've stripped out the reference to layers, and the way that you would build your taxonomy is from the node to node relationships. And so what that does is it allows you to have a portfolio that has multiple levels of depth throughout the portfolio. So you may have one area that has 3 layers or 3 steps down, like 3 nodes to get to the service. Whereas in another, branch, you might have 1, or you might have 2, or you might have 12. There's full flexibility with how you do that. A few of the things that will remain is the requirement of attaching the service at the lowest level, like we call them the leaf nodes. And then we are also removing the weighting mechanism, the performance score that was connected to the service owner workspace. So since we've moved to the KPI groups, the new portfolio structure doesn't reference that anymore. So those are some of the updates, but the issue with the metrics, I don't know if Justin or Mike are still on. Because I know there was, I think Lou, you had brought up an issue with the MTTR in particular, and we were able to resolve that. So I don't know if Justin, if you could talk to that, just so that.
I don't remember the specific issue. I'm trying to bring that up right now.
Okay.
Sorry.
It's okay. Lou, do you recall the details with that? Because I believe it was the issue that you were having and we were able to resolve that.
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, so when switching over to standard portfolio, it appeared that we lost the availability and the mean time to resolve metrics. But what it ended up being was there's a scheduled job that has to run. And that scheduled job wasn't running. So as soon as it was a couple actually. So as soon as we ran those jobs, they started populating. So I don't think it was really an issue. Don't know why those jobs were running. Those jobs were definitely running before we moved to the standard portfolio. And it appeared that they stopped running or, after we moved to it. I don't know if that's what happened. I just moved on, once it was fixed.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, so you shouldn't have issues, Cassandra. And if you do, please do let us know. But the KPI groups should work with the standard portfolio, as well as, with the legacy. And once you're ready to move over, again, no migration is necessary. You just want to make sure that you're not relying on the weighting or the performance metrics, the performance score, before you decide to make the update. Does that help?
I think so. We'll see. What are is there a list of jobs to capture the KPIs? Because I'm trying to get numbers to show up, whether it's service offering or, and I've already figured out the business application is not going to work for me, but on the service offerings, they're just not seeming to roll in or capture. So I'm trying to figure out, am I missing a job?
Yeah, I mean, it can be, if you're using everything default out of the box, it should just work. If you're mapping different KPI groups, if you have different indicator sources, then it may not. And so there's kind of like a couple steps to debug that. You know, what you do is you go to the PA indicator section and then go to jobs, and then you can kind of search for star DPM, and then you can kind of see if they're running or not. That's the first thing that I would recommend. Yeah. Yeah, it looks like Lou actually pasted the URL to, let's see what is that? Is that the PA jobs? Oh, he sent me.
Yeah, those are the 3 jobs, and just remove obviously my instance to get them.
Right. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, and if you get stuck, please, like, you know, don't hesitate to, you know, log a case. It sounds like you're high wave, and so those sometimes take an extra bit to get to us. We work on an object called a case task, which is kind of like underneath the technical support engineer. So sometimes there's a delay, but if it gets stuck, let us know and we will jump on it.
Caitlin, if you actually go to job logs, you can actually see if they're running. Jobs just shows you if they're scheduled or not, but job logs. And then in the name, well, maybe they're not running on your instance. Yep. In the job column, if you just filter on asterisk DPM, that will show you if the DPM jobs are running, if they ran with errors or successful. And these are sort by created date, then you see which ones ran today or yesterday. So that's an easy way to know if the DPM jobs are actually running for you.
Yeah, and the next thing you can do that when we debug this is go to score sheets. So Caitlin, in the app navigator, type in score sheet. This is actually a really good topic. I think it might be on one of the future topic lists, but basically like the data has to be there, the job has to run, and then the data gets populated. Yeah, this is a score sheet that we're looking at right here. The data gets populated in these score sheets. And so this right here, that top one, that score sheet, DPM, SPM availability, that's the indicator. And then if everything's wired up correctly, you'll see numbers, which we do there. And those are the breakdowns on the left. And if it's not wired up correctly, you'll see just a bunch of blank cells in that table. And so that's the behind the scenes debugging for indicators. And you'll notice that like, you know, that DPM service offering on the left, you know, Active Directory, or let's go down one, all hands broadcast, 100, 100, 100. So if Caitlin were to go to that all hands broadcast in DPM, you know, we would expect to see 100% availability on that service offering in the indicator. Hopefully that helps. I know that's a lot of jargon and not a lot of time. You know, we live and breathe the performance analytics stuff every day, so it's very familiar to us. There's halfway decent training that you can take, because this is not DPM specific. This is definitely like a platform feature, and there's a ton of stuff you can do with this. There's tons of customizations and stuff like that, but
It looks like my access is limited, so I'll have to find someone else to look at it for me.
oh no, okay.
Thank you. I actually have to drop, but thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, Cassandra.
Any other questions, comments, anyone?
Just a quick question from my side, sorry. So yeah, I believe I've asked this question previously, and I just thought to ask it again just to see if it's something that will be developed soon or later. This is regarding the KPI group mapping. I believe there was a mention of a new functionality being developed to create KPI group mappings against selected KPI groups type, kind of automatically by default. Is this something that will be released in the next release or?
I'm sorry. So you're asking if we can do KPI group mapping automatically?
So yes, so basically, I think there was an ask from myself, yes, the last time, in terms of me trying to develop something on the line of that. So just using a scheduled script or something that will automatically create group mappings based on the KPI group type that are defined, whether it's an application service or a portfolio. So whenever a new application service is added, so you'd want to create by default a mapping for it so that it can inherit those KPIs.
I see. Yeah. So I almost fell off my chair. I have sent over specific feedback and feature requests to the product manager who owns the KPI groups. And one of the aspects of it was an easier way to kind of batch map, or instead of one-to-one, right? So it wasn't exactly what you described of it being automatic or happening in that way, but so that you don't have to go in and individually map to every single service or offering or app service that you have, because it could be hundreds and hundreds. So that was shared over. I will take a note to get an update on where that's going to be prioritized on his roadmap, because I do agree with you. Like the easy way, I'm using the air quotes, easy way to do that now is using enterprise portfolios or taxonomy nodes, because if you say all of my technical services kind of fall under this branch or this chain, I can map a KPI group at that level and everything inherits that. But we don't have a good way to map a single KPI group to like 100 services or offerings, so to speak. So that has been communicated over to him, but I don't know exactly where that's been prioritized. So I'll make sure to follow up on it, because it's definitely a good feature request, and it's definitely a pain in the butt right now.
Thanks for that. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. What else? What else do you guys have? Would you guys like to see a roadmap or talk about future plans?
Yes, please.
Okay. It's like pulling teeth today. You guys are normally so chatty.
Yeah, must have been a long weekend.
It's the holiday, yeah.
Yeah. I
Threshold
do
is-
feel that.
I have a question about where the threshold is going to be between how many service offerings are going to be functionable under a business service within DPN. 10, 20, I think you mentioned, you envisioned a certain amount, but, companies are all different. Some companies might have one, some companies might have 25, some companies may have more. Is there going to be a threshold notwithstanding some of the other performance improvements you made?
Are you-
Go ahead,
oh,
Caitlin.
sorry, go ahead.
All right.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely working on scaling that, Lou. You know, we've found various issues. Like I know we just found an issue with the maximum number of breakdowns in a, you know, in an indicator, and I think there's an open case task that you have on that. And you know, I think the default is 3,000, and I think to get it working for you, we need to bump it to 10,000, but then that creates potentially some performance issues. So I don't want to say that it's solved, but it's definitely like on our radar, and we're not going to ask our customers to have 25 or less. You know, we're definitely working on scaling to large numbers of offerings in a given service.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Well, keep in mind, I'm working my end too. I mean, this is a progression over time of moving to the maturity model where today they're there and there's many of them because the additional breakdown structure has not been achieved. So for example, as you start rendering your business services into different areas, for example, marketing business services or tax business services, that'll help where they're not all flowing onto one massive maintenance and operation or development type business service.
Yeah, your data model definitely like exposed some of our bad assumptions, and we're like you know, that we're uncovering that, and literally with, you know, every case task that we get from you, we're like, oh, we got to do this different. We got to think about this differently. And so thanks for the patience, and it's definitely improving. And I was just talking to the engineer that was working on the grid issue, which was the max breakdown issue yesterday, and you know, we have a workaround, but not one we're happy with because it might impact performance in other ways. And so it just, yes, it has our attention, I guess, is the best thing I can say to that one. So cool.
Okay, and then the other thing is, have you gotten any feedback, Caitlin, about the check-in, check-out process? Positive or negative?
Oh yeah, definitely performance challenges. And so I'll talk a little bit about that in terms of our roadmap, where we are making improvements to that this current release.
I think I'm alluding to the check-in, check-out process where in the native user interface, whether you're on a business app service offering, associated model or whatever, CMDB group, dynamic or otherwise, there is no check-in, check-out, right? There's just open the record, modify the record, save the record. And in the Service Builder workspace, you all, per your plan, develop the check it out, make changes to it, check it in. I get the idea, right? Because you're in the self-consumed domain of the CSDM, and you want to be able to make a change. And as soon as you make that change, it's live, right? So you're checking it out so you can make the change, validate it, and then, you know, save it and then check it in, and then it's live with that next iteration. However, it's not the way our users are used to working, and I would say it's safe to say many users of ServiceNow don't work that way because it's not a feature that's available native out of the box. So can you speak to that?
Yeah, absolutely. It is intentional. And I'm actually surprised that you said your users aren't used to working in that way, because the feedback that we've gotten is, at least who we are targeting the service builder to, they're not using ServiceNow today. So the feedback has been, because we did do a lot of research before we worked on delivering the service builder, and it's to serve a user who's not using ServiceNow. They're not comfortable with it. They don't understand how to access all the different records, all the different tables, the order that you have to go. If you want to update the service, like one of the status as the phase or the status fields, it has to be aligned with the offering. And so, you know, you can't update the offering before you update the service in certain circumstances. And it gets incredibly confusing, and also building out the right relationships. Like, what is it? Is it a contains? Is it a depends on? Is it the, you know, all that stuff. So the idea is that we wanted to create an experience that can be for somebody who isn't familiar with ServiceNow. They're not using it today to update the records. What they would do is they would work with somebody they would say, hey, here's all my service information. And then somebody who's a ServiceNow expert would go in and they would fill out the records, and they would do all that themselves. So what we wanted to do was we wanted to give the power back to that end user. They can, who owns the service, they know all the details, they know the information, they're managing it day in and day out. They can go into the service builder, follow the step-by-step, easy to add the details. We try to give as much contextual help and information about how fields are used, what's a good description for a service, things like that. And allow them to basically kind of fill it out over time. They don't have to publish it right away. They can save it, iterate on it, work with other people who would want to go in and make updates. And then once it's ready, they can go ahead and publish it. So that's kind of the first use. And then with editing, if you have two different places where somebody could be editing or making changes, we want to avoid any issue with people editing the same thing at the same time and you lose somebody's changes or there's discrepancies. So especially because you're in that service builder UI, when you enter that workflow, we create a copy and we lock the master. The copy then can be edited and updated. And then once that you're happy with that, it looks good and you want to republish it, then we replace it and we use that new version. So it is very intentional and it's supposed to work that way. And if you have users who are comfortable and they're familiar with ServiceNow and they can work, in the lists and forms, then I would recommend that, because the service builder isn't really, necessarily targeted for your super users who can navigate that table structure in those particular records. What we are doing though is the checkout flow, we are, instead of checking out everything, all of your services, all of your offerings, what we're doing is just checking out one thing at a time when you're going to make edits to that particular thing. So really improving the performance there. There are some other updates that we're making in that space, but I do, just because we have 4 minutes left, I kind of want to run through the more macro roadmap for folks. So in this next release, Q3, which will be coming in August, for DPM, what we're looking at is extending our enterprise portfolio feature. So we will allow you to create enterprise portfolios for business applications and enterprise portfolios for application services. We're also going to be introducing KPI groups for business applications and the enterprise portfolio. So now you can track key metrics for your business apps or your app services throughout that portfolio structure. And it'll work very similarly. We are creating new tables for that. It'll be, again, though, similar to how service portfolios are created and maintained. And then there is big updates coming out of the application portfolio management space around technology portfolio management. So software and hardware lifecycle models. We do show TPM, like tech risk and risk ratings for the technical risk in DPM today. We're going to be updating to take that new data model and that structure, much improved, much better experience. So that'll be coming as well. And we always make smaller enhancements to the UI and to different pages. So that's kind of a bucket, a catch-all of things. I mentioned with the service builder that we're working on that checkout flow. We are also creating an approval flow. So now instead of immediately going to publish, you'll be able to build out a workflow I should say an approval flow to have somebody approve or review and approve a service and offerings before it's published. So that'll be coming. And then in the Q4, so November timeframe, is an updated homepage experience. So incorporating some personalization, making it much easier to navigate and access different aspects of DPM from the homepage. And we're also working on incorporating more like tasks and approvals related to different APM use cases, as well as like change approval process in DPM. So we've gotten a lot of feedback that owners tend to also be involved in change approvals. So trying to bring some of those use cases into the workspace. In February, the plan is to improve our personal portfolio. So we have a couple things that we're looking at. One is rolling up data at the personal portfolio level. So making it more of an aggregated summary, giving you some key metrics and reports, and then also introducing condition-based personal portfolios so that you would be able to set a series of conditions that would automatically create and maintain your personal portfolio. So you don't have to do that manually. So that would be an option. In Q2, I mean, this is very subject to change, but there are just some things that we're exploring. The main theme of this is like making it easier to set up different aspects of DPM, including portfolios, more of a portfolio builder experience, potentially introducing the unified CI map into DPM instead of the relationship map that we've kind of created specifically for our users. And then also looking at an admin console. That's again kind of more for setting up DPM. I know we're at time, so that's the roadmap.
Thank you, Caitlin.
Yeah, if there are any questions, I can stay a couple minutes, but I want to be cognizant of time.
For sure. Going to stop the recording, but thank you everyone for joining. Again, our apologies for having to do a last minute switch on topics here. I'll be sure to send an updated schedule and kind of a summary of what we talked about today by end of week. If you have any questions in the meantime, please don't hesitate to reach out. Always happy to receive comments and feedback as always. Thank you.
And Mike, actually, since you're still here, your note in the about looking at services, we did get that feedback from another customer as well. And I found that very interesting and like a good feedback for us. So one thing that we're putting in our backlog is introducing a cancel button. So if you do want to go in and look, you can cancel the checkout without having to like republish or resave and have a bunch of drops.
Yeah, we're trying.